From the shadowy depths of the city, where justice and mystery intertwine, emerges a broadcast as daring and vigilant as the masked Avenger himself. You are tuned in to the Green Hornet Case Files, unveiling the legacy and cultural significance of one of the greatest crime fighters of all time. Now, let the adventure begin. Here are your hosts, Kory and Greg.
You know what I noticed this morning?
I have no clue what you noticed this morning.
So I was just telling you a story where I was watching, went back and was starting 66
66 again, yeah.
And there's a couple of times where they zoomed in, and I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but they zoom in on the logo, and I never noticed that the eyes have the Pac-Man pupil.
Oh. Okay.
Just an observation I made this morning.
And something I've noticed too, speaking of 66, I had never really paid attention to this before, is that Miss Case in a number of the shots is wearing pins that are Hornet pins.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I'd never picked up on that before.
See, that's the great thing about, being in a fandom and watching the same material over and over is you really start to dial in on stuff.
You do.
And that one in particular, I don't know. This is the pins. I noticed the pins today too.
Yeah.
So there was actually a whole bunch of stuff I noticed in this episode.
Welcome to the Green Hornet Case Files, episode 12. Just learning things as we go along.
Well, isn't that's kind of the point.
That's what it's about.
This
is what it's all about.
This is going to be a good episode, guys.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We have author Jim Beard, who's going to be joining us, who has a brand new double shot. And that, the double shot that's coming out with Moonstone. We're going to talk about that coming up here in just a little bit.
Pretty stellar.
I did want to bring up from we had some really great comments about the French film episode 11 last week.
Is that right?
Yeah, and cool. People just really wishing that they could see. And in fact, I was having coffee with one of my filmmaker guys in our group. And he says, because we also do a local film festival here that he's been doing for years. And he says, I think I have a copy of that film that was sent to us.
No way.
And he went back and dug through and found it. And
shut up.
It's the exact same crappy copy.
Oh, dude, you did that on purpose. I got all excited.
I did. I'll tell you that story tomorrow, okay? And yeah, he texted me and he goes, yeah, it's the same crappy quality. And I'm like, oh.
That's a bummer.
Although I did have one of our listeners and good friend, John Pennyworth, Alfred Pennyworth, sent me a note and sent me a link. And I didn't share this with you yet, but I will. He's gone back and found when that was released through Internet Archive's way back. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. And you could get the production book that they did
cool.
when they released that. And I found that. And I found another copy of the film that it's still pretty bad.
Is it any better?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But
I'll take a slight improvement.
It's kind of cool because you can go back and kind of dig around through, and there's some bios and so forth about some of the stuff.
Well, that'd be cool. I mean, kind of wish we would have had that before.
I wish we'd have had that. I'll find that from Sean, and we'll put it up in the show notes.
Fantastic.
Make that happen. In addition to, I did run across, and I forgot. I'm old enough now that I've forgotten that I remembered that I'd forgotten.
You just did that.
What was your name? What's my name at this point?
Come on, Greg. Get you back to your bed.
Have I had my pudding yet? There is another fan film on YouTube that I ran across, and it's just simply called Green Hornet Pilot in parentheses Legacy Project. And it was done in like 2016.
Okay, yeah. So looking at it, it's super fan made.
Oh yeah, it is all fan made.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it's kind of heartwarming I enjoyed the heck out of it, and we were just discussing.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
You want me? Okay.
Yeah.
So we were talking about in the future creating the Patreon.
The Patreon, or something of that ilk.
Of that
yes.
ilk, yeah. Something to kind of help. And we were looking into bonus content that we could give people for participating in that. And I think the first thing we're going to do is kind of a commentary of this fan film.
I like it.
And go along and watch the whole thing, and you can just get our take on it as we go. And then we're talking about keeping that content going with doing that for all of 66 and the French film.
The French film and maybe even 2011 film.
Yep. So, maybe. So keep an eye out. We'll announce it when it's ready. But that's I think where we're going with that.
I think so. And we do have we're toying with some other ideas.
Yeah. It's going to be good. But that one, just watching it along, we're sitting here and we're kind of commentating to each other back and forth, and I was like, "Wait, stop! This is what
this is bonus content.
This is what we should be doing."
I like it. It's a little bit of news in addition to finding that other film is Dynamite, who still has the license to do comics. Did a one-shot last year, if I remember right, and I can't remember what the name of it was. I have it in my collection.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah, just announced on the 22nd, I believe.
The Green Hornet.
Yes.
And Miss Fury cross paths.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's going to be dope.
Now, are you familiar with Miss Fury?
Tangentially. I haven't read any, but I do know of the character.
I have not. Basically, from what I gather, she is the female Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
She's a rich socialite that gets this suit that gives her extraordinary powers when she's in the suit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's considered a superhero or...
Well, I mean, isn't that what Iron Man does?
Well, there you go. But is he a well, that's a whole nother show. We'll talk about that some other time. The one thing that really struck me, though, about Miss Fury and doing some reading, because I was aware of the character, but had never done any deep dive.
Right.
Ms. Fury was the first, she was like the second only female, I'll use the word superhero, in comics and so forth to ever come out.
Oh, really?
Yes. But she was the very first female heroine of this type that was created by a woman.
Oh, dope. Even better.
Even better.
Yeah.
And she predates Wonder Woman by 2-3 years.
Excellent.
Something like that. I
cool.
think if memory serves, or maybe it's the same year, but it's from like January to December or March to December or something like that. So predates Wonder Woman by just a bit.
Well, it gives us something to look into.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about this. It's expected to be out in November, I believe, is what the Dynamite press release said. And it's going to be written by, and I'll butcher names, and I apologize because I don't speak Spanish very well.
True.
Alex Segura and Henry Barajas.
I'm not sure on the pronunciation either, but we'll get it dialed before we talk to them.
Yes. I've already reached out to Alex, and he's super stoked to do the show with us. So in one of the next upcoming episodes, we'll be talking about the brand new comic coming out.
It's going to be, yeah. See, we're going to keep you guys in the loop of what's current.
I'm excited about it. And one of the things that intrigues me, and I've already been having conversations online about this, is I believe it's set in 66, but in showing the press release pictures, they're showing like 40s mask.
Yeah, which is so cool looking in that. Oh, it's done.
Very, very cool.
Do yourself a favor, go to Dynamite's website, look at the press release. Those images of the variants for cover of issue 1 are incredibly cool.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to break my budget, my comic book budget, just to get those.
You didn't get all the variants?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to. And Mrs. Green Hornet is not going to be happy about it, but that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the bullet on this one. All
Just
right.
extra foot rubs, brother. Extra foot rubs. That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. All right. I'm excited because today's guest has just in the amount of time that we've had chats with him, I think he's become friend of the show and friend of ours.
Absolutely, and he's the great thing is, and you can hear it in the episode, in the interview. He's one of us, man. He's a kindred spirit in this whole ride.
I really like the idea of continuing. We talk an awful lot about this on the podcast, and that's how to continue the Green Hornet into the future, how to keep pushing the Green Hornet into the future. Conversations that I'm having right now with George Trendle's granddaughter right now is how do we continue to push the Green Hornet into the future? And obviously, the movie didn't do it. The TV show, did for a season. No other video format has done that. But when you consider the comic book series that have gone for quite a while, Dynamite especially, and there was a one-shot Dynamite that was done here about a year ago, but it was just a one-shot and it was over and done with. The only thing that we have that keeps pushing is the literary side of things. So because of that, and because the fact he has a brand new book out and he wants to push his book, and we're happy to push his book for him, is writer Jim Beard, who's on the podcast with us. Welcome to the Case Files, Jim.
Hey guys, another challenge for fans of the Green Hornet, maybe to get through this episode of your podcast, considering the guests you've already had on, and now they're going to have to put up with me.
That's all right. We'll put up with you for a little while.
They put up with me every week, so
that was a dismal picture you just painted, right?
I got to sit in the same room with him every week. So there you go.
Poor Green Hornet. I just, I mean, I'd like to do something for him, I feel really bad for him now.
Well, but you do something for the Green Hornet. I mean, you're continuing a brand new book just out, 6 months ago? Has it been 6 months since it's been out?
No, literally two months.
Yeah, just dropped.
It's only been about 2 months. Yeah. It just dropped at comic shops and then online.
Moonstone Double Shot, featuring the Green Hornet by Jim Beard. And there's another story. I did pick up a copy of The Green Hornet and Cato Daily Nightly, written by Jim Beard. What drives you into the Green Hornet besides the Black Beauty?
I'm gonna boil this down to the bitter dregs. Number one, green is my favorite color. So if you tell me that there's a superhero that has green in his name and wears green, I'm right there. A lot of this came from my dad, and I trace back almost every bit of the pop culture stuff that I love to my dad and what he loved as a kid and what he really encouraged me to get into when I was growing up. He grew up with the pulp magazines. He grew up with classic old time radio. So the pulp characters that I love, Doc Savage, the Shadow, and the radio characters like the Lone Ranger and of course the Hornet, all kind of came from him. But I think the thing about the Hornet is that I'm a huge Batman fan, and to me he's almost like Green Batman. I'm a huge fan of what they used to call mystery men characters, which is those guys that don't have powers and wear a mask and slink around at night and do what they do. And the Green Hornet's just a really amazing example of that, and that he's just so unique. He's not, he didn't spring from the comic books, he didn't spring from the pulp magazines, it came out of the radio, and then the amazing legacy, like you were talking about, of the things that still keep going on about it. He just has such a unique place in pop culture.
I tend to agree that he is kind of on his own. I mean, there are some other of those masked kind of creatures that you discuss, but I think he is on a unique plane by himself.
And especially the setup. I mean, I don't know, start naming other hero characters that pose as a bad guy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's also a good guy. That's also,
yeah. In the sense of like his civilian identity, that's not terribly unique as far as, he's a man about town. He has money. He, works more or less in the public eye. But it's really wonderful. Then he's also this crime lord, supposedly. I mean, what would the consequences be for Britt if his secret was ever exposed publicly compared to if Bruce Wayne's was exposed? Bruce Wayne's most likely not going to end up in prison. Britt could conceivably end up in prison.
It would be an interesting take on a story that nobody's done yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
But the check will not be in the mail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, well, I got my next Hornet story. I appreciate that.
There you go. You get done with your walk tomorrow morning, you're starting a new story. I can see.
Yeah.
I do keep up with your goings on, your daily writing, and
I know. Talk about feeling exposed. Whew.
Yeah, I tell you what. I'm both Kory and I are walkers. We like to get out and do our walks and do our gym and whatever else. But I usually get home and it's feet up on the sofa, and you're typing away at the computer. How many stories for the Green Hornet have you done? I know I've got the one here, the Green Hornet, How Sweet the Sting.
Yeah, so 2 so far. So that's the How Sweet the Sting is a novella from 2021. And for those of you out there that might not be familiar with the term, it's just a fancy way of saying a short novel.
Right.
And then this brand new one, which is a short story, which is in this double shot. Moonstone does these triple threats and double shots, and they're basically like little mini anthologies where you get more than one story. You get 2 in the double shot and 3 in the triple threat. Thus the names. And it's really kind of fun. I just love it. You said it. The other story in this double shot is the Phantom Detective, which is he's an old pulp character, but I love it. The author's name is Scanlan,
which plays right into it.
I know. It's like I wanted to actually contact the publisher Joe at Moonstone and say, like, you did that on purpose, right? You've been saving that story, knowing that it had to go into a volume with a Green Hornet story.
Now, to be fair, the Scanlan in the Hornet is spelled with an O-N and not an A-N. So
okay.
All
right,
we're gonna
smart Alec.
Differentiate.
Always one in every crowd, Kory.
I am surrounded by pedantic people, and I'm okay with it.
I can get like that too. So
I'm gonna have to look up pedantic.
Okay.
How do you spell?
P-E with an O-N.
A-N-T-I-C.
So, Jim, when you came about How Sweet the Sting, what was that process? Did Moonstone say, "Hey, do you want to do this?" Or were you like, "Hey, I've got an idea"? Like, how did all that come about?
Kind of that both. I had previously done a Kolchak the Night Stalker novella for them.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Okay.
And it was a great experience. It's, another character from my childhood that I literally could not believe I was getting to write an official, story with them. And Joe, the head of Moonstone, seemed pretty happy with it, and I guess it did pretty well. And it was kind of a case of, well, I'd like to do something more for you guys, and I didn't necessarily want to repeat myself on Kolchak. I'd kind of gotten that out of my system, and although I love the character and maybe I want to write him somewhere down the road, I really want to do something else. And they're like, well, there's Green Hornet, and I'd been wanting to write a Green Hornet story for years and years. They did a really nice series of anthologies. I think they did 3.
Yes.
3 or 4, 3, and I missed out on it when the third one came out, and it had a whole bunch of my friends, my fellow writers, in my community in it, and I was just I almost said it, guys. I almost said green with envy, but
so we're gonna.
But anyways, really jealous.
Buzz you on that one. Yes, right? We will.
Oh, good. All right. So I said, hey, if you do another one, can I do that? And they're like, we don't think there's going to be any more. So Green Hornet kind of sat for a little while with them, and I think they were maybe just working out rights or whatever. And then all of a sudden, it's back with a vengeance. And I said to Joe, really love to write Green Hornet. He's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And I said, here's a pitch. And I said, how long does it need to be? And he said, well, you can do whatever you want. So the idea was to literally just start writing it, and whatever it was going to be was whatever it was going to be. And it came out to be longer than a short story, but not quite as long as what we call a novel in the pulp world, which is about
Right.
60,000 words. So I'm trying to remember, I think it's like 45,000 to 50,000, something right in there. Handed it in, and lo and behold, Joe decided to make it its own separate book.
Oh, nice.
Which, if you notice, they don't really do that with the Green Hornet. He ends up in these double shots or triple threat stuff. I was thrilled. I literally got a Green Hornet book to myself. It was an incredible process. And not to get too down here for a moment, but it was also important in my life at that time. I wrote it in 2020. My wife passed away in July of 2019.
I'm sorry to
And
hear
I
that.
had not been thank you. I had not been writing fiction for roughly 2 years. I was in a real slump, and then that occurred, and I was in even a worse slump. The Green Hornet novel was actually one of my ways to get back up on the horse.
You got the wheels turning again?
Yeah, so that invitation was there from Joe, and I said, damn, I'm gonna just do this thing, and so it was nice. It was good therapy, and it went smoothly, and I was really happy with the process. And then it was published in 2021. Gorgeous cover on that book. Another thing that I just feel really honored to have.
It's interesting that you say that after, your wife passed, that you wound up having the Hornet come into your circle enough
Yeah.
to be able to bolster you and boost you at a time when you needed, which is exactly the reason why I'm involved with the Hornet, and why I started doing cosplay was exactly that same. Wasn't my wife, but it was everybody's heard the story that it was my son.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really interesting to hear you say the exact same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's ways to pull ourselves up out of it, but then also in some ways honor their lives. I actually, after she was gone, I had self-published a couple of books by myself. I have a publication house with a co-publisher called Flinch Books, but I wanted to do some nonfiction stuff, and I branded my own one by myself, Becky Books. Her name was Becky. It was a way to honor her, and then also to like get things done. And the Green Hornet project just came along at the perfect time for that. So, and Greg, obviously just from what little you said, I know exactly what that's like.
Yeah, it was an important thing to happen, and obviously for both of us, it was a necessary thing to happen, and it's turned out okay, huh?
Yeah.
That end of it, absolutely.
Talk a little bit about. I mean, you mentioned Green Hornet and your dad.
Yeah.
What was your dad's take on Green Hornet? Was it just a show that he liked to be able to share with you? I shared Batman and stuff with my son the same way, but
Yeah.
what was that like?
Some of my fondest memories are my dad and I would drive around in his car, and my dad was like the tech guy, as far as he had to have whatever the latest audio technology that was out there. I mean, he had records, of course. 8 tracks came along. He had to have 8 tracks, but he had to not only have it in his stereo unit, one of those big freestanding stereo cabinets, where the top opens up, and
Yep.
the record player's down below. He had the 8-track player in the side there.
You're
He had
talking
to
about a
have,
large part of my childhood.
he had to have the 8-track player in the car too. If anybody is aware of 8-track tapes, or you're not aware of them, I mean, they're the clunkiest damn things ever. And when I say that, I mean it literally. They clunk when they switch tracks. But he had different tapes with old radio dramas on it. He had a Green Hornet tape. He had a Lone Ranger tape. He even had he had a production of 1984 with like David Niven or something
Oh,
like that.
wow. Yeah.
I mean, this is, funny. Literally driving around wherever we were going, to the mall, whatever, driving around in the car, listening to these old radio dramas. And that's, again, where my love of radio dramas. So I knew who the Green Hornet was from the youngest possible age of sentience. But strangely enough, I mean, what I knew was pretty much the 60s TV series, but without actually sort of watching the actual show.
Sure.
I have an older brother and sister. I'm the youngest, and there was a lot of things that I inherited. I was born in 65, which I love coming right in the middle of the 60s, but I was there for a lot of those classic 60s things, especially the 66 stuff, but I wasn't. You know what I mean? It's like when you're a year old, you don't really know exactly what's going on around you. But the cool thing is that my dad, because he loved all this stuff, he bought different things for my brother and sister that I inherited. So by the end of the 60s, I had all the Batman stuff he had bought for them because of the Batman TV series and the Green Hornet stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I mean, my exposure to the TV series was the Viewmasters.
Yes, which I have.
Do you really? I
I
didn't
do.
know that. That's
Yes.
awesome.
And watching that and reading the little book, we also had the coloring book. And luckily, my brother and sister weren't into coloring very much because there was a lot to still color in it by the
Oh,
time I
cool.
got, my
Cool.
hands on it. And then this is really funny to me today. They had the plastic wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And I, inherited that. So I had these Green Hornet things, and I knew who the Green Hornet was. And somehow I went through my childhood with the feeling that I had watched the TV show, which the funny thing is it really wasn't on in my area when at a point where I really would have wanted to really sit down and watch it. Batman was always on. And thank goodness for that because Batman stands as my most favorite TV series of all time. And thank goodness there's an episode with the Green Hornet. And as a kid, you always hoped and prayed that that episode would come on. They showed it all out of order back then. You had no idea. It was that, and you prayed with the beginning animated credits that right at the end Batgirl would swing in. And then
Yeah.
yes, Batgirl's in this one. Little knowing how poor the third season of Batman is. It didn't matter, more superheroes was good superheroes, but so there was Green Hornet stuff around. My dad loved it as a kid, listening to those radio dramas. He gravitated towards those same type of characters, the guys with no powers. He wasn't really a Superman fan. He liked Batman. He liked the Green Hornet. He loved the Lone Ranger. He probably had no idea that the Green Hornet and the Lone Ranger were related in
Probably not.
ways.
No.
Yeah. So again, all my childhood stuff is so mixed up, and which is good with memories of doing stuff with my dad and all the things that he encouraged, and then things that were just around the house that I inherited.
I always like to ask, have you seen the 2011 movie?
The Seth Rogen movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be that. There, right? There isn't any other one unless I missed one, and so I was actually writing for a local paper, pop culture articles for a local paper when that came out. And I used to get into movies free as sort of like the movie reviewer.
Yep.
And pretty much everything I saw was trash. So I went to see the Green Hornet movie. Help me refresh my memory. Was it in 3D?
I believe at the time it was, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that sucked too because I wear glasses. I'm almost blind without my glasses, and wearing 3D glasses with glasses just doesn't really work because
Nope.
you have to put them over your glasses. They're pushed so far forward that you keep seeing the glass, the cardboard on your face instead of just looking through the lenses. And so it was an uncomfortable experience. You know what? I walked away from that movie really, and to this day, my only real strong memories were that I liked Kato.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought Kato came off very well in the movie. Other than that, no. I thought it was kind of cute that they used the thing at the end that's actually from the Van Williams TV series where he gets shot, or they fake him getting
The fake
shot.
Yeah.
shot, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, and I remember when that was going on the screen. I went, wait a minute,
Seen
they
this.
stole it from the TV show.
I've seen
But
this before.
I've seen this before, but it's maybe they need to be given a little credit that they use sort of the some of the design and look that they were playing off of the 60s series with the way the masks were and the the coat and the hat and the Black Beauty to some degree. But other than that, it was just wrong-headed. I'm sure I don't I'm sure I'm just preaching to the choir here. I
I'm
assume.
I'm afraid you are preaching to the choir at this
Okay.
point.
All
Yeah.
right.
But everything you said, it tends to echo what Kory and I both feel. We feel like Jay Chow is as Kato,
Was great. Yeah.
was a pretty good homage to Bruce,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they showed the original Black Beauty,
Yep.
the 1937, version, and so there were some nice little,
There's elements to it to be enjoyed.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
they just missed the
Yeah.
mark, and you can't. We've beat this horse to death, but we do like to get everybody's opinion on it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the amount of people that, I don't know if I should say dislike, but don't appreciate it, and
Mm.
then the other half of people we've asked
Huh.
just said no, I haven't seen it.
So let me get this straight. You feel that someday there's going to be a sort of renaissance and it's going to be reevaluated, right?
I think that Renaissance is in the process right
Okay.
now.
Here's what it did. It shut down Green Hornet in the eyes of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And what I think that might even be continuing to this day. I mean, that's why we haven't gotten anything else. I think, and it's unfortunate when these things happen. They always say, "Oh, nope, that property's got to sit there for a long while. Too soon, too soon, too many
Well,
bad memories from that. Nobody wants it."
100%. It's the same thing happened with, speaking of heroes, with Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, yeah.
The Green Lantern movie. I'm a big Green Lantern fan. He's one of my favorite DC properties, and I love the Lantern Corps. I love all the lore behind it.
Yeah.
When they cast Ryan Reynolds, I was like, nope, that's wrong. And I gave it a shot. I tried very hard to like it, and it has made it so we're 10 years out from it, at least.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they're finally
Yeah.
talking about something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's where I feel like that's kind of where we are at right now
With the Hornet, yeah.
the
Yeah.
Green Hornet,
Oh,
because
yeah. Yeah.
we know that it's in the hands of some people. We know that there's director, there's a writer, we know that there's a production company, but we haven't heard anything in nigh on 2 years,
Something like that.
something like that.
Well, that's Hollywood. We're going on, boy, how many years now of the Major Matt Mason project, just sitting there,
Yeah.
where at one point Tom Hanks is behind it. Okay, well, it's probably going to happen. And then years go by and you don't hear anything and you don't hear anything. A friend of mine who was in a position to make something like that happen pitched a series of novels of Major Matt Mason to Mattel, and they basically said, no, well, with this Tom Hanks thing hanging out there, we don't really want to do anything with it. So yeah, this is where we're at. When you look back over how many years of Green Hornet stuff, there hasn't been, I hate to say it, there hasn't been that many successes. And to my mind, the one that really stands out the most is the Now comics.
Yeah.
Before they got some wild hairs and then really tried to change it. But that first couple of years of the Now comics, still to this day are golden years as far as I'm concerned. Ron Fortier, writing that until they just really just screwed it up.
We actually had Ron on a few,
Good.
several episodes back, and
Good.
that
Yeah.
was
Well,
just a
he's Mr.
treat.
Green Hornet. Yeah. He's still kind of is in. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here because Brandon and I are friends, but I still feel like he's still a little bitter. And it's been kind of a while now, but I think they really just stabbed him in the back.
Yeah,
He had introduced the that female Kato, and seemed to be that it was a good reaction, and then the higher up saying nope, we need the Bruce Lee Kato to become back, so get rid of her. And what he had to turn her into a villain or something. I don't even, it's that was about the time that I checked out.
yeah,
But boy, that with those that first like year or so with Jeff Butler and all that fantastic weaving of the two generations together. Oh, just loved it, loved every bit of it. Just that's the kind of like world building that I really appreciate.
So moving forward, and again, we always like to pose this question to guests as well. What would you like to see? I mean, there is the possibility of a new, movie that's in the works,
Yeah.
or are you interested in that kind of thing? If you are, what kind of world do you see it in? Is it a Seth Rogen-y modern vehicle? Is it more of the Phantom as a throwback to
period piece.
the period piece, the Shadow kind of thing, or what do you see?
I tell you, I think what I'd really like to see is a streaming series.
It's an
That's
interesting one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I think I'd really like to see. And yeah, I would want to see a period piece. I want to throw something out there. If this Fantastic Four movie works and it's successful and people really like it, I can see some, pardon my French, some sphincters loosening up, in the offices of the people who are in charge of making stuff, and maybe saying like, oh, maybe a period piece wouldn't be so bad. I mean, look at the first Wonder Woman movie, the
yeah,
Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman movie. I mean, my God, what a World War I movie, you
Yeah,
know?
no kidding.
Yeah, and then of course, then the second one comes out. It's a period piece, and it's considered a flop, which isn't so good. But yeah, I'd like to see, as much as I think I'd like to see it set during the 30s. I think I'd like to see it set during the 60s also.
mm,
I feel for anybody who has to walk in the footsteps of Bruce Lee. And we were just talking about the guy in the Seth Rogen movie. I mean, that's some big shoes to fill because he's not just this side character anymore. It's got this thing around it,
yeah,
It's a big thing too.
Yeah. One of the cool things about Moonstone is that Joe has a couple of guidelines for anybody who wants to write stories, Green Hornet stories for Moonstone. And that's the Green Hornet himself has to be a badass.
Yeah,
He wanted him built up more and to show that if Kato's not around, this guy can still take care of himself.
right.
And I love that. He also wanted that really to drag the noir back into it, and I
good.
tried to do that with How Sweet the Sting. And then the other thing is that Kato, has to be really cool, and that has to be dragged into the present day, into the future. There's no more. We definitely do not have pidgin English. Nothing like that at all. He's got to be treated with respect, and that's wonderful. And that's what a lot of people writers are doing right now with reviving the pulp stylings of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Is you can still write stories like that, but we can get rid of all the racism and sexism, in it. But again, I'd really like to see a streaming series. If they said a movie, I mean, I'd be there for it. I definitely don't want that humorous tone. I love the Phantom movie, the Billy Zane Phantom movie. That's still a huge
Yeah.
favorite of mine. Treat Williams, not so much, but Billy Zane himself, that was a wonderful way to handle it. It was, I mean, they were trying to basically make the Phantom into it, and it was an Indiana Jones movie, which is fine for me because it totally worked. But I love that sort of joy, like Billy Zane's Kit Walker, his joy of being the Phantom, you know.
Yeah,
Oh my God, your dog's a wolf, and then him, yeah, he is, that kind of thing.
Like,
I know this sounds weird for a character who operates at night and he's operating as a criminal and everything like that, but is there a way to get some more adventure into those stories, some more, in a way, sort of joy, and that's how I feel about Batman. That we're at this moment in time where I finally sat down and watched the Batman, the last movie, and didn't really like it. And Batman's my most favorite fictional character of all time. And I keep saying, why can't we get a little bit more adventure into these movies? Like, take the Indiana Jones vibe and kind of get it into a Batman movie. He can still be a creature of the night. I totally get that. But what we've been doing since 1989 has been the same damn thing over and over and over again. With the Seth Rogen movie, they went way too far past that. They literally just said like, "Oh, well, it's got to be a comedy, right?"
Of course,
You
Seth
know,
Rogen. So
yeah. How else? Same thing happened with the Dark Shadows movie. Johnny Depp basically said, "Mister, I'm the biggest Dark Shadows fan ever," and he makes it into a comedy. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and now we will not get another Dark Shadows project anytime soon because they're still sitting on that because it's soiled now in the eyes of all the suits.
You want to make my wife's blood boil. You
Mm.
bring up the Dark Shadows movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that made
just
my that
hatred.
that made my wife's blood boil. She was the biggest Dark Shadows fan ever,
Hmm.
and she was one of Johnny Depp's biggest detractors.
Ah,
She
yeah.
just literally could not stand him, and it seemed like every time there was any Johnny Depp news, it was he's going to be making this or that, and it was always something that we really liked. And she used to say like, "Why does he keep glomming onto every property,
Yeah.
Lone
that I
Ranger.
Lone
like?"
Ranger. Yeah, Lone
Yeah.
Ranger. There you go again.
So Dark Shadows is announced, and long story short, she was not a happy camper. And then she's like, "You know what? You know what?" She saw the rest of the cast, and she's like, "This, okay, okay, I'm gonna just try to, stomach him." And the cast looks good. There was a lot of people that we liked in it. We saw that first trailer, and she just said, "Nope, nope, nope, nope." And
Well, and then
she
to
never did.
give three of the original cast members,
Oof,
John Frid, and
oof,
just a walk on it wasn't anything more than just. And
Yeah.
now,
yeah.
granted, John Frid was in very poor health at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, it's
Uh,
actually kind of embarrassing.
yeah, it actually is. It
Yeah,
actually
that
is.
they're almost, kind of like carrying him through that scene. I have watched that scene. It's David Selby and Catherine Lee Scott and Lara Parker and Jonathan,
Yep.
and it's just really embarrassing.
Well, Jim Beard has been joining us and talking a lot about. He likes green, and I'm so happy because I'm wearing my green shirt today. Not my Green Hornet shirt,
No,
but
no.
my green shirt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Double Shot Moonstone, Green Hornet by Jim Beard, daily, nightly short story, is on the newsstands now. You want to be sure and check that out. Go to Moonstone. Is it moonstone.com, I
it's
believe?
moonstonebooks.com. Yeah,
Moonstonebooks.com.
moonstone.com will take you somewhere else, but the book people are moonstonebooks.com, and they'll see both of my Green Hornet stuff.
Yeah, check out How Sweet the Sting. And I know Joe has a lot of other Hornet titles up there. There's some compilations of short stories and like the
Yeah,
Green Hornet case.
Ace Files. Yeah.
Did he take that from me or did I take that from
I
him?
literally brought it up
I
to show you.
don't know. Maybe that's why
Uh-oh.
Joe won't return my phone calls. I don't know.
So, Jim, do you have any designs on another one? Do you have any in the works?
Yeah, this is to be in this position is really something where Joe is like, I'd like more Green Hornet. Can you do more Green Hornet? And the funny thing is that there's so many things that I want to do, and then I also periodically hit these slumps, and that takes a good chunk out of the time,
Sure.
So working on a few different things right now. I would really like to do another one next year, and I have an idea that could literally be another novella. Daily Nightly was actually my original Green Hornet story when I thought that I could get into one of those anthologies, those bigger, the Case Files
Right,
or
right.
that idea had been in my brain for a while, and to finally get that out onto the screen and then into print is really amazing. So I have the idea, and I would really like to do it, and I think it kind of looks good. I told Joe what I really really want to do is the one thing I cannot do and he cannot do, and so we're not going to do it. That would be Green Hornet Lone Ranger, because he actually does publish Lone Ranger stories too.
There's a comic book
Yeah,
that did the
yeah,
crossover that way.
yeah. So that's the only time that I can tell that those two characters have ever crossed over.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's a weird one because it's the pre-war Hornets and an elderly John Reed.
yes.
And spoiler alert, if I'm not mistaken, the Lone Ranger dies at the end of that story. I have an entire pitch, and my pitch involves the Van Williams Green Hornet,
Well, there you go.
That would be
and
cool.
and a way to have a team up
Ooh,
with his illustrious ancestor, even though it would be set in the 60s. But unfortunately, at this point in time, the saddest thing around is those two properties owned by different people,
Yep.
despite their connective tissue, and those people do not talk, I guess. They don't want to do things like that, which is just utterly, utterly sad. Who knows? Maybe that'll change one day.
You just never know in this
we
crazy world.
we keep holding out hope. It's like a long-standing thing is Greg and I was like I came to the Green Hornet via the Lone Ranger. It was one of
Wow.
that's kind of how I got to him, and
Wow.
I want that more than anything is for that to
Yeah.
continue.
And my growing up in the late 50s, early 60s was, I was a Lone Ranger kid. Besides Roy Rogers, I was a Lone Ranger kid on television way before I ever became a Green
Yeah.
Hornet fan. So,
Wow.
Jim Beard, be sure and pick up the Green Hornet, How Sweet the Sting, Moonstone Double Shot, Green Hornet Daily Nightly. And we hope to hear a lot more and read a lot more Green Hornet from you, Jim.
Thank you very much. And listen, one thing that writers don't get enough of, it's reviews. It's the hardest thing for us to get. And with Moonstone, God love them, it's even harder because they're not on Amazon. So
Yeah.
leaving an Amazon rating or review is not possible. If there's some way to give me some feedback, and by that I don't necessarily mean praise, although of course I'll take praise, but um, somehow, folks, if you take the plunge with me, and check it out, let me know what you think. Good, bad, I don't care. It's the feedback that counts. Whether it's on Goodreads, I know there's some reviews of How Sweet the Sting on Goodreads. There's none of the new Double Shot story. Or find me online. Find me on Facebook at the Jim Beard and Becky Books page, or you can go to flinchbooks.com and there's a contact us thing there, or I'm on X, which at writer Jim Beard. I would love to hear from you, especially if you're a Green Hornet fan.
And we can get all those links up in the when the episode drops too.
Yeah,
Coolio.
we'll make sure we get the show notes up, and yeah,
Coolio.
by all means, writers live on those reviews. If you can
Yeah.
figure out a way to get on Goodreads and do that, if you don't know how to do that or what that is, email us here at podcast at
66.
greenhornet66.com, and be glad to pass that on. I'm a reviewer for a lot of my friends who are writers, so happy to do that.
Well, Greg's been kind enough to let me take a peek at the copies that you sent him, and I can't wait to get my copies and get to finish it.
Love to hear what you guys think. One more thing I want to add in really quick. If anybody out there is a fan of Casey and never, believe that she never really got her due in the show, then you might be happy with my stories.
There you go. Yeah, especially How Sweet the Sting.
Little
Yes.
teaser
Yeah,
there. I love it. Way to
little
bait the
teaser.
hook.
Little teaser
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Jim, thank you for spending some time with us on the Green Hornet Case Files, and we'll do it again, man.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. This was one of my goals. Get on this show.
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
Boy, I feel so blessed at this point.
Well, listen, you guys are doing a great service for the Green Hornet community, and you're to be commended for that, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you.
Very, very kind. We really, really appreciate it.
We
man.
appreciate you giving us a little push there too. So,
hey, thank you. That was fun.
I don't know about you, but I was talking about breaking my budget with comic books.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to break my budget with Moonstone Books, and I've already got Jim's book. And
yeah. The problem is so again, we brought this up.
Yeah.
You got sent copies. But
yeah, Jim, I asked for 2 copies of each.
No hard feelings, Jim.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm totally playing, dude. But what I was gonna say is I'm trying to figure out which one I want to get first.
Yeah.
And I think I'm leaning towards the case files.
Why wouldn't you?
Just because.
Yes.
I like it. But I'm pulling the trigger probably today. I just haven't figured out which one for sure I'm doing.
I have 3 of the compilations, the short story compilations.
Right.
Case files, one of them, and there's 2 others that I have. And I picked one up on my Kindle a while back, and just like, wow, this is so cool, because some of them are kind of written 40-ish, some of them are kind of fit 60-ish. You just gotta go check out Moonstone,
and that's the coolest part about it, in my opinion. So we've been talking about this, and we've been skipping around and asking people, like, when we go forward, what should we do? And a lot of people are like, oh, it should be 66. And a lot of people are like, oh, it should be 40s. I happen to feel like it should be an ambiguous Batman the Animated Series, its own time, its own place.
Yeah.
This amalgamation
world. I like it, yeah.
That's where I think it should go. But that being said, I think that's the hook for Moonstone, in my opinion, is you can get this wide breadth of variety in the world, and it's still all Green Hornet.
Mm-hmm.
So
one of the comments that I've made to Mrs. Green Hornet is that, and we've been kind of asking the question, have we actually? No, I don't think we haven't actually asked this question. So I'll ask this question now and then lead into that. Is, what do you think is wrong with the Hornet? I know this is a big question, and we've already had a great episode, and we've got to wrap this up. But what do you think is wrong with the Hornet? And by that, I don't necessarily mean the characters themselves or the plot.
Not to discount, that could be your issue.
Yeah, it could be your issue with it.
But what we're inquiring is, what would you change going forward?
Yes, and not necessarily even for the characters, but maybe the property.
Yeah.
Moving forward, what's wrong? And one of the things I always came up with was there was really only one ever Oliver Perry that was kind of like the recurring bad guy, whereas Batman has the Joker, the Riddler, the Catwoman, the Rogues Gallery, and Hornet never really had that. There were no super fiends.
Actually,
or whatever.
that could be such a boon. Honestly, it's not just Batman. Through popular culture, you get your Bond that has multiple bad guys, but even then, there's some connective tissue.
Oh, always
between those bad guys.
Always something that ties it back.
But that is a kind of crippling. To the Hornet is the fact that that's not the case,
and that's one of the things that one of the writers, and I don't know which one it is, so I won't attempt to go there, is that in the Moonstone compilation books, there is one of the writers who has written a multiple storylines that include a recurring character, and I love it.
Yeah,
and I won't tell you which one it is, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right.
But again, we gotta thank Jim, because this was such a great conversation.
Yeah, it really was a great conversation, and we're trying to get Joe on the show with Moonstone. Speaking of, real quick,
we had some more news, right?
Yeah, I did notice, and I don't know when this was released. I'll have to reach out to Joe and ask. is that Moonstone is doing yet another double feature with the Hornet and Cato called Bridge to Betrayal. And I don't know for sure when it's coming out, but if you go to Moonstones and go to Coming Soon, a little tab at the top, you'll find this one. And they're doing it double feature. The second feature is Domino Lady and Judge.
Oh, cool.
So, if you're into that kind of thing. But yeah, Moonstone, Joe and Moonstone and Jim, and they're just keeping it going.
Yeah, and thank them. Most importantly, I want to thank them for giving us so much more.
Oh yeah,
like we've gotten so much more content, so much more stuff to talk about.
Otherwise, what is there? I mean, we keep talking about the radio shows, and there is a lot of content there. We got the serials we could talk about, but a serial is a serial is a serial.
Yeah,
and then you've got 66, you've got the movie, and other than that.
Not a lot going on. But Moonstone, keeping it alive. Yeah, Dynamite, keeping it alive.
Joe and the guys at Dynamite. Yeah, that's where our content is coming from right now. I think that's about a wrap for the show. We've got so much more that we can talk about. Some other exciting things that are happening, conversations I've been having with people, and
there's a lot to come. We really appreciate all of you. Keep checking in. We appreciate it so much, but there's so much more to come.
There is,
and I can't. I've mentioned this before. When we started out, we were like, I don't know how many episodes we can get. We're looking at a pretty long run here if this stuff keeps coming.
Yeah, and there is so much more coming that it's just super, super exciting. So again, thanks everybody for joining us for the Case Files.
Any comments?
Yes.
Podcast at greenhornet66.com. We hadn't mentioned that this episode.
I think we did
in the interview.
Yeah, okay. But yes, podcast at Green Hornet Case File or greenhornet66.com. Thank you. I don't even know what my own email address is at this point. What was your name again?
My name's Steve.
Okay, Steve.
Nice to meet you.
So nice to see you again.
Here's your plate.
And with that,
we are out of here. Let's roll.
Let's roll.
As the night envelops the city once more, our journey through the hidden alleys of history and valor comes to a close. You've been riding shotgun with the Green Hornet Case Files, where the echoes of the past meet the voices of the present. Tune in again for the next thrilling adventure, where shadows speak, secrets unfold, and the legacy of the Green Hornet continues to inspire. The Green Hornet Case Files is a Grail Productions podcast. The Green Hornet is owned exclusively by Green Hornet, Inc. Until next time, vigilant listeners, keep your wits sharp and your spirit unbreakable.